Hilton Robertson and I have gotten to know each other over the past couple of years. He lives 2 doors down, and we often chat when he goes on his daily walks. He often likes to tease me about my vegetable garden. He criticizes it in a playful way, but recently I began to listen to what he had to say. Typically, I can see that I don't know what I'm doing, and just recently I realized that it's because I have never actively accessed and practiced the horticultural knowledge of an elder in my community. I've had the inclination to get my hands dirty and hope for the best for a few years now, but what I lacked was a teacher. He grew up on a farm in New Zion in Tuberville, South Carolina. They grew tobacco, corn, tomatoes, okra, and more. He has also lived and gardened in the Midlands for over 70 years. So I challenged Hilton to teach me his knowledge. Hilton instructed that we plant from seed with the exception of sweet potatoes. Based on the history and condition of the land that we stood on, Hilton strongly suggested sweet potatoes and peppers because of their ability to withstand the acidic soil. A pig farm once laid atop the earth that our homes now do, which increased the acidity of the soil in our area directly. We agreed to expand the front end to accommodate a large bed of sweet potatoes, and the rear to make space for more peppers, tomatoes, and watermelons, with fencing to enclose each end. Moving from one end to the other of the 20-foot by 11-foot garden plot, I prepared an angled bed for sweet potatoes on the far side, raised rows for carrots, collards, tomatoes, squash, and peppers, and then more rows for beans along the fence to fill out the front. For our cucumber bed, we used a raised box-like earthwork structured and supported with surplus lumber and logs. I have also been instructed to use running poles for the vines of peas, beans, and cucumbers to allow them to climb to the fence no matter where they are planted. Hilton said that we needed a lot of compost to even out the acidic soil. I applied our household compost made of food scraps, dead vegetation, animal manure, and other organic matter from our household, neighbors, and community members. But Hilton strongly suggested that we needed more. So I got some organic compost from the nursery, about 12 cubic feet, which made about 20 cubic feet in total. He then agreed that peat moss would be a good addition as well to hold in moisture. I followed Hilton's instructions, but I also had some freedom within that framework. Because the knowledge that Hilton gave me was vague, he offered local historical context that identified specific conditions in our ecosystem, as in sand dries out too quick and doesn't soak up enough water, he said. It also represented a vague blend of traditional, conventional, and adaptive knowledge, some applicable and some not so much. In order to fulfill organic standards and incorporate as many sustainable practices as possible, I used organic seed and soil amendments as well as avoiding as much soil obstruction as possible. My housemates, friends, and neighbors noticed that I had been spending more time in the garden making preparations, and they began to get involved. We expanded the garden, completed the fence, and sowed the seeds. Under Hilton's instructions, we planted tomatoes, sweet peppers, hot peppers, cucumbers, collards, speckled butter beans, Lady D beans, crooked neck squash, and sweet potatoes. Up to this point, many had invested in direct and indirect ways. We structured the soil into rows, raised beds constructed with surplus wood, we sowed seeds, we planted those plants, we nurtured the garden, and many also gave organic matter for community compost. The challenge then became access to institutional networks of knowledge and resources. The University of South Carolina, through ANTH 525 Ethnoecology, supplied the basis for our institutional networks, with Dr. Gail Wagner, our original patron, as a figure of inspiration. The goal for this project then became a sustainable community self-determination through local ecological knowledge, and hopefully the beginnings of an adaptive co-management initiative pulling from multiple networks of information and resources. Dr. Wagner given a variety of species to plant in our garden with instructions. We are especially excited about the indigenous tobacco, and it is our first experiment with a non-commercialized native domesticate. Matthew Kipp with Sustainable South and I now have a budding relationship, and he has added some mint as well as a vining basil that he suggested we wrap around our tomatoes for pest control purposes. We are just getting our feet wet with permacultural experiments. I have started a few experiments with selected herbs for pest control, medicinal, culinary, and ground cover purposes to encourage mutually beneficial relationships between species within our ecosystem. Some of these plans are based on instruction from experts like Dr. Wagner and Matthew Kipp, and others are based on incomplete knowledges that require further experimentation to determine species adaptability and resilience in our ecosystem and the potential for value to our community. We're going to make some Hilton said squash